Well, for more on that story, France 24's senior reporter Catherine Norris Trent joins us now from Washington. Catherine, safety concerns have been at the front of everyone's mind since January 6th. Mayor of Washington, D.C., Muriel Bowser, called for extra measures to be implemented. So what does the security situation look like there on the eve of this inauguration?
Security is extremely tight here in Washington, D.C., as the nation's capital prepares for a presidential inauguration like no other. Washington is just waking up to the last full day of Donald Trump's presidency, and the scene here is unprecedented. There are security cordons all around the center of the city, like this one you can see behind me, just a couple of blocks away from the White House. There are several layers of security preventing traffic from going through. There are military vehicles parked across the streets of central Washington to prevent road traffic, and anyone without Secret Service security clearance cannot enter the very heart of the city at the moment. Authorities have also closed off now the road bridges leading into Washington from the neighboring state of Virginia, and airlines have scaled back and cancelled many of their flights in. So this is an attempt to try and stop people from around the country coming to Washington, of course, amid these very high security fears. We also know that the 25,000 members of the U.S. military, of the National Guard, who are being brought into Washington, D.C. to secure the Capitol, are being triple checked for security amid fears that perhaps, just perhaps, there could be a risk of security breaches from the inside. So they are being triple scrubbed, as it's known here, checked by the FBI, the Secret Service and the military to see if they may have any links with any right-wing or extremist groups. And a lot of the shops here in the Capitol and cafes and restaurants are closed and boarded up. Very few people out on the streets. It's certainly not like any day before an inauguration that Washington has seen before.
Now, Catherine, you mentioned there the far-right and right-wing groups. I believe that in the course of your reporting, you've been speaking to some people from that camp. They say they're still determined to make their voices heard as a Democratic administration enters the White House.
Yeah, that's right. You don't have to travel that far from Washington, D.C. at all to find people who are still extremely angry about this inauguration, about the election campaign, people chanting, "Joe Biden is not my president," and really expressing their anger and saying they're going to make their voices heard over the next 4 years. So what form that takes is now what everyone is waiting to see. You know, the country has been braced for protests at state capitals across the 50 states of the U.S., but so far there have been no mass protests or violent scenes. Security is being ramped right up. And, you know, Donald Trump supporters and far-right activists I spoke to say, you know, they're waiting to see what happens. Many of them are laying low, unwilling to come out and protest after the events on the 6th of January, that siege on the U.S. Capitol here in Washington, afraid perhaps of being arrested by the FBI. For other right-wingers, that was a step too far, and they don't want to be seen in taking part in any acts of violence. So lots of them saying that they're not going to go away. They've gone from mainstream social networks onto other groups, that the movement is perhaps going underground, splintering, going out of view. But those people, those core Donald Trump supporters, are still very much there.
Thank you very much for that update. Catherine Norris Trent reporting for us from Washington, D.C. Next, in